Hello everyone, welcome to the final webinar that we're running for Invasive Species Week. Thank you very much for joining. So I'm Lucy Cornwell from the GB Non-native Species Secretariat, and I'm really delighted to be joined by Rhiannon Austin from the RSPB, Nicole Stout from the Government of the Virgin Islands, and Elvis Gerard from the Government of Montserrat. So we've also got my colleague here, James Millett, who is our UK Overseas Territories Biosecurity Project Officer. I hope I haven't mispronounced anyone's names. Before we start the talks, I've just got a few quick housekeeping things to go through. So we're going to be recording the webinar today, and we'll make that available on our website later for anyone who has missed it. We will have some time for questions at the end, hopefully. So what we're going to do is save them until after all of the talks. So if you do have any questions as we go through, if you can write those in the chat box or the Q&A, then we can pick those up after the talks. And if you have any technical issues, you can write those in the chat too, and I will try and help where I can. If in doubt, the best thing to do is to leave the meeting and then rejoin. That normally sorts things out. So that is everything from me. So I will hand over to Rhiannon first.
Thanks, Lucy. Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, brilliant. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining this morning. It's a pleasure to talk to you. My name is Dr. Rhiannon Austin. I'm a UK project manager for the RSPB, and I'm just going to be introducing the regional biosecurity project that we have running currently across the whole of the Caribbean, 5 Caribbean UK overseas territories. Okay. So this project is actually the first Darwin strategic project that was awarded. It started in 2024 and it's a 5-year project. It's a big initiative across the region involving Cayman Islands, the Turks and Caicos Islands, Anguilla, British Virgin Islands and Montserrat. So we have government departments in all of the 5 Caribbean UKOTs involved. The RSPB are actually leading this from a project management perspective. And then we have the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology that are also involved through the horizon scanning, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in a minute. I'm just going to spend the next 10 minutes just giving you a broad overview of all of the activities that are taking place on this regional initiative before we then move on to have some talks from some of our biosecurity officers that are actively working on the project. And just to spend just a second to acknowledge Simon Busuttil, who was the project manager for the first 2 years of this project. A lot of the work that I'm going to talk about and present now is because of the momentum that he's built managing this project. He sadly passed away at the end of January, but I've just joined as the project manager, so he's the one that's been really pushing this initiative forward over the last few years, and thanks to Simon for that. So the project outcome statement is to strengthen at-border biosecurity so that it's effectively implemented across the 5 Caribbean UKOTs. And that's through a number of methods, through advancing the legislation in place for biosecurity, improving effective interagency working, increasing capacity across the UKOTs, and also improving the biosecurity infrastructure, facilities and equipment that are available to deal with the threat of incursions from invasive species. So this again is just a list of all of the organisations that are involved. We also have a number of contractors and collaborators that are part of this initiative working with us. We have the Centre for Agriculture and Bioscience, CABI, who are involved in some of our training programs and development of training and port assessments as well. We're working with drafters, consultants who are helping to push forward some of the policies and legislation that are being developed. And then obviously we are working really closely with the GB NSS as well, because of the ongoing biosecurity projects that they are involved in across the UKOTs. As you'll all be aware, and I'm sure you've heard a lot this week about this, the threat of invasive species is massive, and it's really, really important across the Caribbean as global trade increases, as our coastal populations are increasing, and there are an increasing number of pathways for these invasive species to come into the islands in the Caribbean, not only through maritime and air transport, but also through trade. So we have the ornamental plant trade and horticulture, the pet and aquarium trade, and increasing changes as climate change continues to change the oceans as well. So some of the pathways are becoming more important. This slide is just to give an example of some of the huge economic costs that can can happen if invasive species come in and establish populations. So this slide was provided to me by the Department of Environment in the Cayman Islands, and it's just to show the cost, the economic cost from the invasive green iguana in the Cayman Islands already. So the Department of Environment have estimated that over 12 million Cayman Islands dollars have already been spent since October 2018 to try and combat the threat of the impact of green iguanas across the Cayman Islands. There's been a culling effort that's been ongoing, and the costs are still ongoing as well. So we really want to be moving into a place where we're putting in these strong preventative systems to prevent the establishment of these species. This is another example of the huge ecological cost of an invasive, the feral cat, again in the Cayman Islands, because I'm here in the Cayman Islands at the moment. We've just been running a horizon scanning workshop, and this is just to show the massive impact that feral cats have had on the native breeding population of brown boobies on Cayman brack. Was a and in a very short period of time, we're now down to a handful of breeding pairs. And some of these ecological costs are also irreversible in any short time scale. And then again, for the British Virgin Islands, and I'm sure biosecurity officers will talk about this, we have a feral goat population in the Tobago's National Park, which has been an issue for many years, has changed the communities of plants on the islands, caused erosion, and then had knock-on impacts in some of our breeding seabird populations, including the magnificent frigate bird. Lastly, just to highlight a species which is not yet established throughout the Caribbean islands, but is a major threat. It's the Peter's rock agama. So we have a non-native population in Florida, which has been present since the 1970s, but we're starting to see this species now coming into various islands in the Caribbean. There are reports in the Bahamas. There are a number of these individuals seen in the British Virgin Islands, and we now have reports in the Cayman Islands and more recently in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So again, just to drive home the point that prevention, early detection systems, and then rapid response to any incursions is so important. So back to the project, we have three main outputs. The first one is to strengthen and advance biosecurity legislation across the 5 Caribbean UKOTs to enable effective at-border biosecurity. In the Turks and Caicos Islands, we have the animal and plant health regulations and ordinances which were put in place in 2024. This is a really good framework which we've been using to try and help support advancements in policies and legislation in some of the other countries. The Cayman Islands here are now trying to revise the Animals Act, and they're making good headway with that, and recently put in place the Plant Protection Act in 2023. And then through the project, there have been drafters and legislation consultants working to try and develop policies and legislation in the BVIs, Anguilla, and through the project that the NNSS is running through Montserrat as well. And we're making some really good progress with that collectively as a partnership. And we hope that by the end of this project, some of these policies and some of the legislation will be in place to improve the biosecurity framework across the region. The second output is to build capacity, and we're doing this in a number of ways. So we have recruited 5 biosecurity officers now through the project in each of the territories, and they're active in their roles, and we'll be hearing from 2 of them shortly. And there is a tailored training program which CABI is delivering to try and build the skills and capacity of the biosecurity officers across the region in a unified way. And then these biosecurity officers will then be involved in developing a wider at-border biosecurity training program for other stakeholders at the ports and customs. We also hope to develop put in place some kind of inter-territory biosecurity working group that will basically continue after this project finishes to continue information sharing across the different territories and for cross-territory learnings. And then lastly, onto horizon scanning. So the idea of the horizon scanning workshops is to update the list from 2018, from the last horizon scanning exercise. And we're running workshops in all of the 5 countries to try and agree the high priority invasive species that have the potential to arrive, establish and impact not only biodiversity, but also human health and or economies. This week we ran a workshop in the Cayman Islands, and last week we were in the Turks and Caicos Islands. This is being led by Helen Roy and the team at CEH. And we also had a workshop that took place in Anguilla in February. So we've been working with all of the local experts and organizations that have so much expertise in all of the animals and plants across the different islands to try and go from these very, very long lists to short lists of the species that have the highest potential for impact in each of the different countries. And this is just an example of the list from the old horizon scanning in 2018. So we're going to be producing updated lists now through these workshops. This is the Cayman Islands list that we've updated, and we found a number of changes, a number of new species which are coming through, which now pose some risk to the Cayman Islands. And then from this, we're going to be taking these lists, taking these information and trying to improve and strengthen the early detection systems that are in place for these species and build some rapid response plans. So we're asking questions about what surveillance systems are in place, how can we improve them? Once an invasive species has been detected in an island, what is the protocol for coordinating a response between the different departments that are involved in biosecurity on the islands? And we'll be running further workshops and roundtable discussions and even field exercises so that we can run through various different incursion scenarios so that everyone knows what the protocol is and how we deal with these species if they do come into the countries. We're then going to be continuing with these training and awareness campaigns at the main ports of entry. So this will involve the project and the various partners developing port signage and improving the identification materials available at the main ports. We also have amnesty bin schemes, which we're trying to develop for countries that don't yet have this. And we hope that will really improve this first line of defence for invasives. And then lastly, there's a big output to try and improve the infrastructure, the facilities and the equipment that are available at the main ports of entry to deal with incoming shipments and to improve the biosecurity. So CABI has undertaken a big port assessment to identify what the needs are in the 5 different countries. We have a prioritization list for port infrastructure and facilities, and we now have a number of capital projects which are being developed to basically improve the infrastructure in the 5 countries. So it's a huge range of activities that are ongoing. We have another 2.5 years to try and deliver all of these so that by the end of the project, we will have hopefully a strengthened, unified biosecurity framework in place in the Caribbean UKOTs. So I think that's all from me, and I'll just pass back to Lucy, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Rhiannon. That's an amazing project and so much going on. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions, but we'll save those for the end. So our next speaker is Nikoi. So if Nikoi, you want to, if Rhiannon, you stop sharing, and then Nikoi, you share your screen.
Good day all. I am Nikoi Stout, Biosecurity Officer with the British Virgin Islands government, also under the project that Rhiannon was just talking about. And today I'll be talking about invasive non-native species and biosecurity in the Virgin Islands as we protect island ecosystems through effective biosecurity efforts. So invasive non-native species and biosecurity in the Virgin Islands. The impact of invasive species, they threaten biodiversity, ecosystems, and local economies in island environments like the Virgin Islands. The fact is that island economies and island environments in general do host a variety of biodiversity, and they are very impactful to the world's biodiversity, as well as they are very can be impacted as well strongly. So the role of biosecurity focuses on prevention, early detection, and most importantly, rapid response to manage invasive species and protect island ecosystems effectively. Ecological and socio-economic importance. It offers food security, tourism, fisheries, and public health through a One Health approach. And there's a shared responsibility that effective biosecurity requires coordinated efforts among government, industry, and the public to protect the unique biodiversity of the Virgin Islands. So we're getting a little bit more of that later in the presentation, but right here we have pictured of Anigada rocky iguana, which is one of our endemic species, and it is also endangered. Up to early 2000s, there were only about 300 in the wild, and now there's a project going on with the Fort Worth Zoo that is being developed and continuously proven to be effective, but more work certainly needs to be done. And there's an interlace between INS, which is invasive non-native species, and biosecurity, where both of them complement each other because biosecurity does a lot of the protecting, and INS have to do with the impact and danger to the endemic species in the Virgin Islands. So a bit about the Virgin Islands. From a geographic and social connectivity, it links land and sea with frequent and shipping increasing exposure to invasive species. A lot of invasive species come in on barges, on boats, because we're such an island nation and we import such a vast amount of our produce or goods and services come a lot from outside, and so invasive species come in from outside. It can be as far as the US, as far as Europe, and as close as other Caribbean islands, unfortunately. And we are a collection of about greater than 50 islands, keys, inlets, islets, and it's an archipelago of islands, a part of the Virgin Islands, the larger Virgin Islands archipelago, including the US Virgin Islands. But today we'll be talking about the British Virgin Islands, of course. Ecological diversity and importance, the host of diverse amount of habitats. We have one of the largest barrier reefs in Anegada. We have a lot of mangrove forests, many of which were destroyed in our 2017 hurricanes, but many of which also are coming back to life and doing well through our college programs and as well as private programs, ensuring that there are a lot of harvesting of propagules, which are the seeds of mangroves, and replanting forests. We have dry forests, we have tropical forests, thorn scrubs, and these support endemic and vital species. So because you have such a vast and drastic rainy and dry season as well in the Caribbean, it's tropical environment, and these two come together to really provide this tropical habitat for endemic species. The vulnerability now to invasive species, there's an isolated island ecosystem lacking defensive, making them vulnerable to invasive species that disrupt biodiversity and infrastructure. And we talk a bit more, especially about infrastructure later on. And this creates a need for proactive biosecurity, where effective biosecurity requires prevention, focused, coordinated efforts to protect ecosystems and livelihoods. So again, going back to the previous slide, there's an importance on prevention, early detection, and rapid response, because when these things become implanted and very strong in the ecosystem, they are hard to remove and they are hard to manage. And so preventing them through effective biosecurity, early detection of these threats, and then rapidly responding to them is key and very important, especially in these island ecosystems. So a picture here showing our Virgin Islands and many of our larger islands. And now we get to the invasive non-native species in the Virgin Islands, of which there are a number. So one of the primary ones that we are dealing with now is the green iguana, which is pictured here next to some sea grape leaves. And they are invasive on our land, on the Virgin Islands land, threatening agriculture and the native iguana species through competition and habitat damage. Also through hybridization, where the green iguana can mate with the Anegada rock iguana, which is so far not been noted, but is still a very great threat and a very present threat. And so the prevention of this is key and very important. So that's one of our faunas that are invasive non-native. There's also some surprising ones like goats, there's rats, the West Indian mongoose as well. And these are very pervasive and established species. So the green iguana is one of the newer ones, whereas rats and mongoose have been here for quite some time. In terms of the flora, there's the invasive neem tree. These neem trees spread specifically and especially in coastal areas, outcompeting native dune plants and impacting restoration efforts for wildlife habitats. They are medicinal, however, because they're invasive, they do outcompete native plants. They grow they're very the thing with invasive species is that because they are not well adapted, well, they are well adapted, but because other plants and animals are not well adapted to having them in their environment, they tend to outcompete and be very have explosive growth. And so that's become our issue with the green iguana, and that's become our issue with the invasive neem tree as well. The lionfish was a hot topic, but has not disappeared, unfortunately. But it was a hot topic a few years ago. And these invasive marine predators reduce juvenile reef fish populations and challenge local marine ecosystems. And marine biosecurity risks include invasive species introduced by biofouling, ballast bilge water, and small craft movement. So in terms of small craft movements, we have a Xenidae pulse coral actually that's been recently on the move and has been found in many different islands, and it can attach to boats. It can attach to small craft boats, and through fragmentation it can then break off and then establish populations again. Because it's an invasive species, it can have explosive population growth through ballast bilge water and biofouling, again through attachment, through being carried from all across the globe, because again we're such a, it's also known to be a sailing capital of the world, where such have so much sailing, so much barges, so much cargo, and people coming in through cruise ships and these things. It's important that we enact effective biosecurity in order to prevent the establishment, the introduction, and if the introduction occurs, which has happened and unfortunately may and occur in the future, we have to have early detection and rapid response. So the current biosecurity framework in the Virgin Islands includes a legislative landscape where the Virgin Islands spans, the legislation of the Virgin Islands spans over 40 sector-specific laws covering customs, quarantine, plant, and animal health. Institutional roles include the ministry for which I work, the Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources, Climate Change, customs, agriculture, environmental health, and national parks. We are managed by security functions, but quite currently it is still fragmented. Operational collaboration includes interagency cooperation at the ports, supported by international projects, which ensures biosecurity inspections and capacity building. And there's a need again for integration where existing biosecurity measures remain fragmented and reactive, highlighting the need for a unified proactive framework. So challenges and gaps in the current biosecurity system. I did talk about a few of them previously, but let's get into them a bit more. There's a fragmented governance structure. Multiple agencies handle biosecurity separately without a unified law or lead authority. However, we do have a biosecurity policy coming into play that is being going through the drafting process and these things that will fix these issues. However, currently they are still causing enforcement inconsistencies. So when biosecurity problems arise, it is a bit of a challenge to answer them. Who's responsible? How can we work together? But this has been very much a work in progress. Operational limitations include limited staffing, uneven port coverage, and absence of quarantine facilities hinder rapid response to threats. Again, it's important. Rapid response is important, as is early detection. Marine biosecurity gaps. Weak domestic controls and biofouling, small craft and inter-island vessel movement increase invasion risks, and digital and awareness deficits. It's a digital world after all. No integrated biosecurity data system and low public awareness reduce effective compliance and information sharing. So our path forward. So first of all, I am the biosecurity officer. I was hired under the project that Rhiannon just spoke about. And so we have having a definitely a renaissance of sorts of biosecurity in the Virgin Islands. And through this, through myself, through further agency, interagency coordination with customs, with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, and with other agencies, we will be having a strategic framework and collaboration which strengthens interagency cooperation and have a shared responsibility. Biosecurity is a shared responsibility. It's not just the responsibility of one department, one ministry. It's a shared responsibility and has to be a shared responsibility in order for it to be strengthened and effective. Legislative reform and enforcement. Proposed biosecurity legislation designates a lead authority, expands inspection powers, and sets risk-based controls. Because it's such a vast and pervasive problem, you have to be data-driven and have risk-based controls in order to be effective once again. And the future of biosecurity coordination plans include an interagency biosecurity council and a digital information system for rapid response and surveillance. So two things I'd like to call out again, which I've been saying across the presentation, is interagency coordination and rapid response. These two things are important: interagency coordination and rapid response. So this was, just to go back, the last one was a juvenile, a hatchling, probably a bit or about a year old Anigada rock iguana. Uh, I find them to be handsome beings, and even when they're older, they tend to be stout and robust individuals. And this is a goat. This is a goat cart with this little bed and coming down. Collaborative biosecurity efforts require whole of government and community collaboration to effectively prevent invasive species impacts in island territories. So again, this is a goat that, you know, the capture of the target species, trying to capture this. The camera that I was trying to capture was not a goat, but because they are so pervasive, they tend to overgraze and cause problems with, you know, when they overgraze, then soil can go down into the marine environments, which then affects the coral reef. So they affect more than just the environment that they're in, but the environments that are around them. The importance of prevention includes preventing invasive species introduction. It's more cost effective and efficient than controlling or eradicating established populations, strengthening capacity, enhancing legislative frameworks, agency coordination, training, and public awareness reduces biosecurity risk and supports resilience, and engaging in discussion reflecting on biosecurity risk, awareness improvements, and partnerships is essential for turning policy into effective action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikoi. That was great. It's really interesting to hear about your approach to biosecurity and all the really important work that you're doing to strengthen it. We'll save questions for the end. So next up we have Elvis. Oh, who might have just dropped off. We'll just wait for him to come back. If anyone does have any questions in the meantime, we've got a few minutes while we wait for Elvis to come back.
Okay. Good morning.
Ah, there you are.
Yes, I'm here. Hello?
Yep, that's looking
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good morning to all. My name is Elvis Gerald. I'm the biosecurity officer from Montserrat. You all hearing me?
Yep, that's perfect.
All right, good. So today I'll be talking about biosecurity. I will also be looking at some species, invasive species that we currently have on Montserrat, and also looking at invasive species that we do not have on Montserrat and we're currently looking out for. So what is biosecurity? Biosecurity is basically putting measures in place to prevent the introduction and spread of a new invasive species in an area, all right? And the way we go about it, we do pre-border checks, and we also do at the border checks, which is more difficult because sometimes stuff still gets in. And once invasive species gets in, it's very, very hard to control. What are invasive species? They could be plants, animal diseases, insects, or other creatures in a new place introduced by people's activities, either directly or indirectly. Right? Directly, some people might bring in invasive as pets, or indirectly, something might come in on your clothes, on your shoes, or in your luggage. And they do cause harm to our agriculture sector, forest trees. They also affect human health. They damage wildlife and native plants and affect things like soil and water. Pathway analysis. How can new invasive species arrive? In Montserrat, we have basically two main pathways, which is our airport and seaport. The main pathways for entry are invertebrates on live plants or in fresh produce, vertebrates as pets or smuggled pets, plant imported as garden plants, chill containers, used vehicles, and heavy equipment. Invasive species are introduced in a number of ways. You can have them in contaminated goods, pests in food, hitchhikers in shipping containers. You have stowaways in ships, cars, and on planes, You also have invasive hiding in luggage. They could stuck to your boots, clothes, etc. And also wooden pallets, very important. And again, once these invasive species are introduced, they can be really hard to control. Some examples of impact of invasives on our biodiversity. They attack native species, they compete with native species, they hybridize, they degrade or alter habitats, they cause diseases, example West Nile viruses, avian flu. They can also be vectors for diseases, and they can also change the ecosystems such as decomposition cycles. At the top picture, you see a baby turtle being attacked by the red imported fire ants. And the lower picture, you see a little mouse attacking a young chick. This graph is basically showing you the impact of invasive species over time. So once an invasive species is introduced, the impact is very low, but as time goes by, it gets greater and greater with time. This is just a picture of some produce being inspected from the Dominica boat, which comes here on a weekly basis on Montserrat with more ground provisions. All right, we now look at invasive species found on Montserrat. One of the main pests that we have of sweet potato currently is the sweet potato weevil, which is the Xylus formicarius. This pest is very destructive of sweet potato. Once you have this, you get up to 90% or more damage of your tubers. Currently, we are putting down some pheromone traps for this pest as well. It's the same sweet potato weevil. This is showing you the male and female. The main identification is the antenna. So in the female, the antenna is a club shape, and in the male, it's more a rectangular, straight shape. Management activities. So the picture above, you see we putting on a sweet potato weevil trap. The trap is placed just above the canopy of the sweet potato. All right. We put in a pheromone. Once you use this pheromone, you must wear gloves. All right. It's very strong. It's like a super female. All right. And the males can smell this pheromone for up to 4 miles and fly into the trap. And below is just the males that we caught in the trap. So far, we caught over 5,000 males in the traps over a 1-year period. The next invasive species found on Montserrat is the West Indian sweet potato weevil. For this one, farmers get up to 60 to 75% damage of their tubers. Next invasive species is the diamondback moth. This moth mostly affects brassicas, so stuff like your cabbage, your kale, broccoli, cauliflower. It's a very destructive pest. You can get up to 90% damage of your cabbage field as well with this diamondback moth. And next, this destructive pest is the melonworm, mostly of your cucurbits. So you attack stuff like your cucumber, pumpkin, squash, right? You can get up to 90% damage of your cucumber field with this pest as well. You attack the leaves, and when you finish with the leaves, you also attack the fruit, right? It's also called a pickle worm as well. And you can know it with these stripes. You have 2 white stripes on the back. Another pest found in Montserrat is the tropical buntick. This was introduced back in the 80s and is still present. Right? The male is more pretty, the female is more brown and can reach the size of a nutmeg. Right? One female can lay up to 20,000 eggs. Very destructive. We also spread a disease as well called amblyomma, heart water disease. Next common pest found on Montserrat is the cabbage white butterfly. Right? Mostly affect the brassicas again, cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower. mostly the greens. And our next pest is the corn earworm. Right? The female go and lay eggs on the silk, the eggs hatch, and the young larvae tunnel down into the corn and feed on the kernels of the corn. Another pest found on Montserrat that attack mostly citrus is the citrus leaf miner. Right? The adult lay egg on the leaf, the egg hatch, and the young maggot tunnel inside of the leaf. It's very hard to control as well. You need a systemic insecticide to control it. And next, this destructive pest of citrus is the Asian citrus psyllid. Currently, this has wiped out most of our citrus on island. So we have no orange, lime, grapefruit, tangerine, almost nothing left. Right? Cause a disease called the citrus greening or the HLB disease. Next pest is the citrus weevil of citrus, mostly feed on the leaves of the citrus and mostly feed on the outer edge of the leaf. And we have two types. We have this one and we have a brown one as well. Next pest is the cucumber stripe beetle. This could also be a vector as well for diseases. It mostly feed on cucurbits, cucumber, pumpkins, squash, and melons. Another common pest is the green stink bugs, mostly feed on your tomatoes and bell peppers. It feed on the leaves and also feed on the fruit as well. The next pest which was recently introduced is the black Asian bean bug, mostly of legumes. Currently, we have not seen any major damage from this pest, but it just looks disgusting on the stem basically, but we haven't seen no major damage from this pest. Next pest is the leaf-footed bug, and this pest mostly attack the pomegranate fruit. It punctures the fruit and the fruit begins to rot. And it's a stink bug. The next pest is the red bay ambrosia beetle. This pest is recently introduced as well, about 3-4 years ago, and it attacked mostly our avocado trees, also neem trees, and mahogany trees. So a few trees have been dying since this pest has been introduced. We currently putting on some pheromone traps for this pest as well. And it also spread a disease called the laurel wilt of avocado. The next major pest is the soursop wasp. Currently, you could hardly get a good soursop to eat on island because of this pest, and it lives mainly in the seed of the soursop. So you see plenty exit holes all over your soursop, and the food is very hard and lumpy, cannot be eaten. And we also have the pink hibiscus mealybug, introduced back in the 90s, but we have our beneficial beetles, ladybugs, being able to control it to a point, but it's still present on island. And it's basically on most plants, hibiscus and fruit trees, soursop, sugar apples, guava. You could find this pest. And a new pest which was recently introduced again was the cotton scale insect, mainly found on your cotton ornamental plant. So all those green stuff you see on the stem is the cotton scale feeding on your cotton plant. They are sucking insects. Another scale which was recently introduced is the Icera scale as well, mostly found on fruit trees, guavas, breadfruit, mangoes, sugar apples. Next pest is the green citrus aphid, which is also a vector, and you found it basically on almost all vegetables, cabbage, tomatoes, eggplants, right? This and then another sucking insects, and they multiply very fast. And like I said, they are vectors for viral diseases as well. Next pest is the cabbage whitefly, also a vector. They also multiply very fast and they spread diseases as well, viral diseases of cabbage, pumpkin, squash, you name it. Next pest is the melon trip. Mostly feed on your eggplants during the blossom stage. And as the fruit get bigger, you see all those brown scales all over the fruit, right? You also attack plants as well, cause lesions on the plant as well. Next pest is the red spider mite, mostly of the solanaceous crop. So your tomatoes, your eggplant, bell peppers, very hard to control. Right? And a sucking insect. Then we have the green cone plant hopper. Right? Another major pest is the banana stem weevil, mostly attack your bananas and also planting. And they live mostly in the roots or in the comb. Right? As the egg hatch, the larva tunnel up into the fuser stem of the banana, then the plant begins to collapse, basically. Cannot take up water and nutrients and eventually start to die. Another pest found on Montserrat, which is a disease, is called the black sigatoka disease of bananas and planting. So all those black, brown lesions you see on the leaves is sign of the fungus. Mostly attack the leaves, and that will reduce your production. And the bunches start to get smaller and smaller. Eventually, the trees then will die. Next major pest that we have is the root knot nematode. It's a microscopic worm that lives inside the root, mostly again solanaceous plant, your tomatoes, your eggplants, your sweet peppers, right? Something you find in the cabbage as well. Very destructive pest. Yeah. Once you go in the plant cannot take up water and nutrients, and you get stunted growth, and eventually you have death. You also have this pest, which is called the mole cricket, right? Attack mostly the ceilings. So when they put in your ceilings in the ground, it comes and chop them off and pull them under the ground. It can fly, it can jump, it can swim. It's very hard to control as well. Then we have the West Indian fruit fly. Currently, we're putting on other traps right now to see if we have any other fruit flies, but so far, we just finding the West Indian fruit fly. He attack basically our mangoes, our guavas, and carambola. Next pest we have is the mango seed weevil, and this pest lives inside the seed of the mango. And usually we do our national tree planting day. We get mango seeds to propagate, to graft. And currently, almost all the seeds that we collect, and we open the shell, there's no seed. Right? The mango seed weevil have just eaten off all the seeds of the mango. It's a major pest here. Another pest is the red imported fire ants. And as you can see in the picture, you can see the nest, the mound. Again, almost everywhere you go on island, you meet it. So it's very bad, especially for the children. They come out to play at the park or even at the schools. It's a problem. And it's bite very hard, and it also cause pus or lumps on your hand as well. Wherever you get bite, it leave a mark, basically. And we also have a next fire ants, which is called the little red fire ants. And you mostly find this in the forest. When you're going doing hikes, you come across this one. We also have a next fire ants, which is called the tropical fire ants as well. And we also have this grand sphinx. This is a moth. It almost look like a snake. We call it the snake caterpillar. I found it on a broccoli. No major damage really, but it's a few leaves being eaten. And now we will be looking at some pests that are not present on Montserrat. So the first pest is the green iguana, which we do not have currently on Montserrat. We're also looking out for the redhead agama. The male have the redhead and the female is more of a brownish color. We do not have these on Montserrat. We're also looking out for the black and white tegu. We're also looking out for the Cuban anole. We're also looking out for the brown basilisk. And we're also looking out for the sweet potato weaver. This one is mostly in Africa. And this one is very destructive as well. It eats the leaves and also eat the tubers. And we also have a next sweet potato weaver we're looking out for, which is also found in Africa. Now we're also looking out for these corn snakes, and they are currently present in Nevis, which is close by. We're also looking out for the Cuban tree frog, the boa constrictor, the Asian longhorn beetle that attack forest trees, and the citrus longhorn beetle which attack citrus trees. We're also looking out for the red palm weevil, which attack palm trees and also coconut trees. And we're also looking out for the South American palm weevil. This one is also a vector. It spread a disease called the red ring disease of coconuts. We are also looking out for the medfly or the Mediterranean fruit fly. And this fruit fly basically attack all fruits, basically. And we're also looking out for the carambola fruit fly, which attack a lot of fruits as well. We're also looking out for the giant African land snail, which is currently in Antigua, but so far we have not found it on Montserrat. And the giant African snail is also a vector. It do have a lungworm, which is of public health concern. It can lead to meningitis. Right? And we're also looking out for the tomato leaf miner. This leaf miner attack both the plant and it also attack the fruits. You can have total loss of your field of tomatoes if this pest gets away on you. Next pest we're looking at is the citrus canker disease of citrus. You see lesions on the fruit and you have lesions also on the leaves of the citrus plant. Next invasive we're looking at is the frosty powdery disease of cocoa. So all those white frost you see is the fungal spores. And we're also looking out for lethal yellowing of coconuts and palms, also present in Antigua, St. Kitts and Nevis. So once you have this disease, coconut head then start to fall off basically, and the trees just start to look like lampposts. And it is spread by an insect. The plant hopper is the vector for the little yellowing disease. And this is the red wing disease, also spread by the same beetles, South American weevils. You could see them in the picture below. Once you cut the coconut tree, you see a bright red ring right around. And you know you have the red ring disease, which is caused by nematodes. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Elvis. That was so interesting. And it sounds like you've got a lot to deal with already and then a lot that you're looking out for.
Yes, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. So biosecurity is really important.
Very important.
We have a few minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, you can write them in the chat box, or if you put your hand up, we might be able to unmute you to say them. I had one quick one for you, Elvis. A lot of the species that you have already are invertebrates. Is that the main kind of problem that you have, or have you have any vertebrates as well?
We have vertebrates as well, mostly agouti, the rats and iguanas.
Yeah.
And feral animals as well, fowls. Yeah, you have a lot of pests.
Yeah. There's a few comments in the chat. People saying that's a good list to keep out. Give people a few minutes for any other questions. I mean, this all sounds like really brilliant work. What's next for you, Rhiannon?
So we have 2 horizon scanning workshops that will be taking place in BVI and Montserrat, actually, that we're just trying to prepare at the moment. And so that, I mean, this list is brilliant that Elvis has just presented. It's a really good start for that. And I think the various organisations involved are going through the list that have already been produced from the horizon scanning workshops in the last few weeks in February. So there's a lot of internal vetting that then goes on and discussions to be had between the various departments involved in biosecurity. So, but then we're going to be taking those and then moving on to how do we then feed that information through into risk assessments, which are more detailed for the high priority species, and then developing incursion response plans so that everyone's aware of who to contact in various scenarios for various different species. So there's loads of work ongoing with that. And then, yeah, the port infrastructure improvements are getting underway this year as well. So yeah, there's loads going on. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it does sound exciting. Okay, we've got a hand up. I'm going to allow your mic, Kelvin, so you might have to unmute yourself, but you should be able to speak.
Thanks very much. Please confirm you can hear me, first of all, Lucy.
Yep, all good.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you ever so much for your presentations. It sounds like there's lots of sort of knowing what to look for, but the problem is so often is twofold. First of all, detection and then identification. If there was sort of a magic wish list from the speakers, what could we help you more with? Is it detecting, or is it identification, a combination, or is it helping with encouraging offshore kind of knowledge of this to prevent problems coming to you in the first place? So it's a very open question, I'm afraid, but what I'm hoping to get out of this is that myself and others on the call often are called upon to help out overseas territories, and we would just like some sort of assistance to know what is the sort of thing you would like. So Lucy, hopefully that's helpful. So Elvis or Rhiannon?
Yes, that would be identification.
Yeah.
Most the pests that we do catch here that we cannot identify, we send them to DEFRA.
Yeah.
To Malamfree to identify for us. But yeah, identifying would be very good.
Okay.
there anything you want to add, Rhiannon or Nikoi?
Yeah, I think identification is key, because there's so many shipments coming in all the time, and it's about how does that information get fed through to the right people quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about the protocols that are in place, and the different departments knowing, who do I contact, what am I looking at, is that something I need to be aware of. So I think we are hoping we have some funds through this initiative to really help build some awareness campaigns and materials and signage at ports, and obviously the training scheme is really, really important. So I think any and a lot of this, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's just about how best to get that information out there and get people talking and keep the communication pathways open, I think, because it's changing so quickly as well. There are new species coming in all the time. So how do we keep those lists being updated in real time so that everyone's aware of what the threats are? And there's a lot of commonalities as well. There's differences, because obviously each island is different in terms of the agriculture that's the dominant agriculture on the islands, or the marine pathways. So I think it's knowing what the main pathways are and potential pathways are, and just being aware of that. I don't know if that helps answer your question. But...
No, that's helpful. It seems that identification, it seems to be well supported, which is really good to hear. And from picking up some of the talks, actually the detection perhaps inland is something that is, you know what good looks like, you spot the unusual, but perhaps maybe there might be something about some of the shipments which are coming in are in very low levels of detection, or even cryptic. And I don't know if it's fair or unfair to say that that might be one area is actually preventing that larger area of build-up happening in the first place. But I could be wrong about the statement I made about needing some extra assistance at detecting things at the port on arrival. But I think for a lot of the containers, they perhaps go straight to the end users rather than being stopped at the ports, perhaps. So it might be quite difficult to do those checks.
I think that's an important point, because a lot of the species, there's been a number of very, very small species, worms and ticks, and that are coming through that can be an aggregate, even eggs of polychaetes. So I think it's having it again. This is why the project's also trying to focus on improving the lab facilities and the screening that takes place. So, and it's not always these large species, quite often they're cryptic. So you're right.
Definitely those nematodes, the nematodes are going to be something you're never going to be able to pick up really at a port.
Okay. Have you got time? Oh yeah, sorry, Nikoi.
No, I agree with what was said on this topic.
I think we've got time for probably one more question. So I'm just going to pick a technical one. Okay, so are we getting photos of these pest and invasive species out to the farmers so they can be on the lookout? In the BBI, they do import a lot of stuff. So are you sharing information with farmers?
So through the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, partnering with them to be aware of sorting of the pests and vectors, we do have to have a coordinative response and approach to these things. So currently there's no, for example, like central database or central reference point to which farmers or other persons interested in agriculture may be able to find and have some sort of identification portal or the like, in order to be aware and keep up to date with invasive species. But this, as a part of the project, is definitely one of the named and wanted outcomes for that purpose.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think we're at 4 o'clock, so I think we're going to have to finish there. I don't want to keep speakers any longer, but thank you so much for all of those talks. They were brilliant, and it was really great to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Great to be a happy Innsweek.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right, take care.
Cheers, everyone.
All right, cheers.
Bye.